And I want to welcome you all to our webinar today. Our topic is linking parcel data with grand list data, and our presenter is Pete Fellows from Two Rivers Ottauquechee Regional Commission. Before I hand the reins over to Pete, I'm going to do a very brief intro to using this webinar interface and give you a chance to sort of let me know if you have any issues. So the screen that you're seeing should be how to participate today and has a few little things on the right about the things you can do. You can open and close your panel by clicking on the little orange box with an arrow in it. You can view, select, and test your audio by opening up the audio box. If you click on the little, there should be a plus sign next to the word audio in your panel, and it will open up. And if you click on the, I'm forgetting what you click on. You click on the edit button. You'll be able to change your audio mode. So if you're having an issue with audio, make sure to open up your audio part of your panel and switch to either telephone or mic and speakers, whichever you're actually using. You may notice that you are actually muted, so I cannot hear anything that you say or that's going on around you in your space. And you guys will all remain muted, but there will be a way that you can ask questions, which is using your questions box down at the bottom of your panel. You can type in your questions, and when you send it, it'll come to me. And at the end of the presentation, I will go through the questions and just either pass them along to Pete or read them out loud so that he can answer them. The other thing I want to point out on your panel is this little symbol of an orange hand. That is your virtual way of raising your hand, and I'm going to ask everybody to look for that button and click on it right now, because that's how I'm going to know that you are all listening to me and can hear me. So if everybody could look for that little orange hand on your panel and click on that, that should make your hands raise in my little list, because I have a list of all the all the participants. All right, good. I'm seeing lots of hands. And anybody else out there who hears me, if you could click on the little orange hand, then I will know that you're listening. Thank you. Okay. It looks like most everybody can hear me. If you can't hear me, I'm going to point at the question box again now so that hopefully you'll know that you can send me a message by typing it into the question box. So I'm going to hand it over to Pete. So if anybody does have any questions about just functional stuff or how this is going to go, feel free to send me those as well. You can send the question at any time because it won't interrupt Pete. I'll save the questions towards the end, towards the end. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Pete now. And he can start. And, oh, I know what the other thing was, sorry. We are going to record the webinar, and if Pete has any other materials that he would like to give me that go along with his presentation, he'll send those to me, and both the recording and any other materials will be posted at our website. So if anybody needs to leave in the midst of this, or if you want to recommend that somebody else view it, that will be possible, hopefully within a week. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Pete.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to learning about the grand list and tax parcel data. At the end of this, hopefully Leslie and I can talk a little bit about the new parcel standard, which is surprisingly brief and pretty well written. I've seen the draft. I've looked at it, so that should be really interesting. But and that's got some kind of new changes that we can talk about, that I'll talk about through here, that'll actually make stuff a lot easier and hopefully make some of the stuff I'm about to show you not necessary, the harder stuff, so that's always a good thing. My name's Pete Fellows. I'm the GIS manager for Two Rivers Ottauquechee Regional Commission down in Woodstock, and I've been doing this for helping out towns at 2 different RPCs for almost 13 years. So I've done a lot of this type of dealing with grand list data and tax parcel data in the GIS and trying to get them to work together. So we obviously know that there's a lot of data in the grand list, very useful. I mean, the basic stuff is, you know, the owner's name and their address and stuff like that, but I think a lot of you on the line are municipal officials, and you already know about all the other data in there that's really important. There's a few pieces that are particularly of interest to doing GIS. I'm going to talk about a couple of those fields. Of course, the tax parcel ID is one. A new important ID is called the span number, and that relates to the kind of the new way that all the tax bills and tax parcels and property tax records are being tracked at the state level. There's also a couple other neat fields. One of them is a land use field. I'll talk about that. It gives land use codes for what the grand list record holds. Another one is a rate field, which may be really useful to figuring out if you're in the town or the village in terms of the grand list. And then you can compare that to your kind of spatial information. That's that rate select field. And I'll talk about that later. After we go over kind of figuring out where you can get information on this, where there's some documentation on, you know, all this grand list information is. That'll be the first part. We'll go into this kind of demonstration where I'll talk about how to deal with the grand list data itself, how to massage it and get it ready to link to your GIS data. Now, hopefully, and soon in the future, it's going to be a lot easier with the span number, and that's reflected in the new parcel standard. But sometimes you don't always have the span number, and I'll talk about how to handle that. When you get your GIS data, you want to always check and make sure, just look at the data, and we'll do this in the demonstration, and see if there already is kind of a linking field set up. Has your town already talked to their tax parcel mapping contractor, and have they set up some sort of linking field between your grand list and the GIS file? The contractors previous to the span number have all done this a little different. Cartographic Associates over in Littleton has used this concept called AV PID. Grassroots GIS is a little vendor. She has a couple interesting ways of dealing with it, using a parent and a subfield. Vision's another contractor that some towns use down my way. And then there's the big grand list vendor, grand list software vendor, or municipal software vendor, and that's called New England Municipal Resource Center. And most people are familiar with that, otherwise known as NIMRIC. And they're kind of the de facto standard in Vermont with various fields, and we'll look at that. Then we'll take a look at the GIS in the demo first, then we'll get into Excel and do some fun stuff with some Excel formulas. They're not too hard, pretty easy. And then we'll load it directly into from Excel into ArcMap and see how it works. And kind of here's a fun set of pictures before we get into the nitty-gritty. This is what we're trying to avoid. This is the old method. So this is up in Morrisville, Vermont, in the Old Town office. And so we used to have to start with the tax parcel map. We'd look up a number on the tax parcel map or code, go over to this little box. Okay, now we have our code from our tax parcel map. This will give us a name or another code that we can take over to the assessment files. Then we can look up the assessment file, and that may give us the book and page number, so we can walk it back across the room into the vault. And Morrisville, well, their old vault anyway, I'm not sure if they still use this, was lovely, except for maybe the lighting there. A little brutal, but they had a nice place to work. But what we want to do is do this digitally. Obviously, we can't have the whole deed record in there digitally, but maybe eventually we can get some scanned images of that. New Hampshire's done a lot of that. So we want to, unfortunately, get rid of this exercise and do it digitally. So this is my contact information. I'll put that up at the end. And feel free to give me a call or email me if you have any questions after the fact about all these things. So here we go. All right. So the first thing to do would be how can we find where are good places to look to find additional information about the grand list if you're not necessarily a municipal official and a little unfamiliar with it. So we'll just do a Google search here. And we'll put in NIMRIC, grand list, and then data dictionary. Boop. So it's the first link that pops up, and this is really nice. So most towns in Vermont use a grand list formatted something like this vendor formats it. If you're using not necessarily NIMRIC, or you might be using Vision, it's another fund accounting software, it should look mostly the same. But what's nice about this is it's online here. You can use it, and you can go look stuff up. So let's go see what's in the main property file. Okay, so we've obviously got our name fields. It tells how big they are and what they are. And then it gives the P-prop and P-sub fields, which are usually part of your tax map ID, which could be a linking field. Gives all the location fields. Here's an important field, P-span. That's that span number, school code. Here's a real important field, and I'll show you what's in this. This is called the land use category field. They don't tell you that here, but if you've played with grand list data a lot, you know that, but someone can tell you, what's in there, and then I'll show you how to look up the data in there. And then there's some more fields. There's a whole bunch of fields down here that might be useful. Here's a real neat one. This is kind of a field that some towns may or may not use. It's called the rate select field, and this in a couple of the towns I deal with is, are you in the village, or are you in the fire district, or are you in the town at a certain tax rate? And this field will tell you which one of those districts you're in and which tax rate you're using. I don't really care about the tax rate, but I care about, from a database point of view, which district the database thinks you're in, because I can compare that to my GIS data and then hopefully reconcile the two, or maybe help towns find errors or fix my data or whatever I may need to do. So that's a really nice set of documentation. You can also, on the NIMRIC website, there's, and I think if you just type in like NIMRIC grand list export, this page will pop right up. But they're all under, I think, support here, yeah. And if you just scroll down to the bottom, it's all under grand list. And then you can go down to export data in this case. So if you, most listers are absolute experts at this, but if you have a situation where you need to help someone do an export, or you just want to bone up on it again, this is how it works in NIMRIC software. You go to this report menu, you export data. This dialog tells you about all the different things you can select. And here's the explanations of them down here. And then you get down to the Fields tab, and you can choose, some fields that you want to pull out. Here's that tax map ID. Here's the first and second half of the P-prop and the P-sub, which goes into that tax map ID. You can also get, where are you? Spans in there somewhere. There's that category code. So you make sure you get the ones you need. may not need any of these other esoteric ones, but that's how it's done for a lot of communities who use NIMRIC, how you get the data out. Another good site where you can get some information on some background documentation is the PBR site at the State Tax Department. So if we go there, this is in the listers section of the PBR section of the Tax Department's website. So you just could type in PBR VT listers, and it'll take you right to this page. And if we click on, where is it? Here we are. Category codes, right here. And it'll open this up. And this is pretty useful. This is that P_CD2 field that I was talking about earlier. And most of the entries in the grand list should be categorized according to this lookup table, this table here. So residential, less than 6 acres, greater than 6 unlanded mobile homes, landed mobile homes, seasonal, commercial, so on and so forth. And these codes should be in there. And this may or may not be of use to you. But it's available on the PBR website, as well as some other documentation that could really be helpful. And then there's all the current use documentation, how to do the application and all that. That's all there for non-lister folks who've never played around with this website. So all that information is really useful. It's very easy to get to, especially this this NIMRIC documentation. Their data dictionary is what they call it in their support FAQ. So let's start to look at some GIS data here. So we're going to go into ArcMap. So this is ArcMap 10. I just upgraded a week ago, so I'm still getting used to it. So bear with me. But we have some data here. This is the town of Woodstock. So it's the classic tax parcel coverage layer shapefile here of the town of Woodstock. Here's the village. This is Route 4, South Woodstock down here. So, and this is all the parcels. And over here, on the left side of the screen, is the database that's attached to that. So this is the little GIS table that's kind of underneath. And here are all the fields. We're going to scroll over and look at some of them. So here's one field. This is called, in this shapefile, parcel code. And that might be important to us. And here's the second one. And this is called GL span, grand list span. And so that's that new, relatively new, few years old span number that the state is now and towns are using to track parcels. So that's of interest to us as well. Now, the nice thing about the span number is this is a statewide format. So it's usually always 3 digits, a dash, 3 digits, a dash, and then, 5 digits here. So that's nice. The tax map code can vary from town to town. Usually it's kind of a 3 or 4 part code that relates to an index system using the first number here is a map index, so there you might grid your town out into 9 different tax maps. Or there might be 15 or 20, a couple dozen. So in this case, it's map 20. Then the second number is usually a lot within that map or a block. I'm not sure what it is for Woodstock, but it's either a lot or a block, and this last number is either a lot or a block. And then sometimes as the parcel gets subdivided, you'll add a little extension there. So you can see that. And that's kind of the way that most towns have been doing their parcel coding. But now we're moving into this span number method, which has its pros and cons too. I won't get into all of those, but so those are two real important fields there. We're going to scroll over. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in a parcel file. This GIS parcel file actually has a lot of other fields in it already, so it almost looks like you've linked the grand list already, but it's just got some location fields and some descriptions that may or may not have already been pulled from the grand list. In this case, I think some of them were, but it doesn't have the name information that we might need. It already actually looks like it's been linked to the grand list, so it has that land use category field, the CD field. And then we're scrolling over. It's got some more location information. And then it's got this tax map field as well. And then it's got the span field and another CD field. So when you get the GIS data for some of these things, you kind of need to go through and kind of just look at the fields and see what's in there. And this is that rate select field. So what's interesting about that, I'll show you this. So we're going to sort ascending, and then what we're going to do, just going to scroll down here. And I know how Woodstock has this set up, so you can see this code here. These set of records up here have a 4, and these down here have 5. So we're going to select these and just see what happens, all the 4 records. We'll go to the top here. We're selecting, we're selecting, we're selecting. Here we go. Still selecting. I could have done a query, but whoop. Okay, so we'll get to the bottom of the 4s right there. Grab the rest of these. And you can see what happened here. I missed these. But using that rate select field, I've selected all the parcels that are in the town and are not in the village. So these parcels with the 4 are in the town. I forgot, I didn't grab these because I was doing that weird selection, but it's just the scrolling thing. And all these 5s down here are in the village. So if we kind of zoom in over here, look at the town versus the village. What's really neat about this field is this is kind of a tabular representation using tax rates of whether you're in the town or the village. And why it's important to make sure your grand list data is linked to your parcel data is, you might want to check that or, see if things are different. Now this relates to not so much necessarily complete parcels, but it might be if the house is actually in the village, but the part of the parcel extends into the town. So it can be a useful check, but that kind of shows you the utility of doing that. Okay, so basically, let's go back and look, unselect these. How do I do that? There we go. Let's go back over here and sort these. There. Okay, so we're looking at the parcel code here, and this is where we're going to get into the not fun stuff, but it's important. Okay, if you're using the span number, you should always check and make sure you've got this 3-digit dash, 3-digit dash, 5-digit thing. Usually they are that way. That's pretty easy. But if for some reason you don't have the span information in your data, in your GIS data, you may have to use this parcel code field to do your linking. So basically, when you do your linking, you take the parcel code, an identical field from one table, in this case the GIS table, and link it to the grand list data. So you need a field that's formatted identically, it's the same data type, all that stuff. Doesn't have to be the same name, but everything else needs to be roughly the same about it. So you can see here we have a 2-digit, period, 2-digit, or point, and then 2 more digits. And then for these subdivided parcels, we have 3 digits on the end. So that's what it has to look like. Now, if we scroll over here, this is when you have to sit down and look at your data. Well, this one, gosh, you got to really pay attention. That has a little period on the end of this field. Hopefully you guys can see that. Get right close up to your screen. My screen's pretty small, but so that's formatted a little bit differently than that other field. And now what we need to do is we need to go check our grand list and see how that's formatted to see what field we want to use to link. So what we'll do is we'll switch over to that now, and we'll go look. Okay, so here's the grand list export I've gotten out of NIMRIC from Woodstock. Woodstock listers are very nice to me, and I try to make maps for them, try to be nice to them too. But they gave me this little export. And here are all the fields I got from it up here. Well, so these are all the field names. I got that rate select field because that's useful. Tells me what's in the town and the village. That category field. I got the span number. Taxable and non-taxable. That might be useful. And then we have I also got this tax map field. And you can see this one's formatted. Okay, so we have the 2, 2, 2, and 3, and the point. This one has the point at the end. Okay, well, that looks like that second one we looked at just a second ago. Looks like this one here. So that's good. That makes us happy. We breathe a big sigh of relief. But let's go back here. What we're going to do is we're going to pretend this field never existed. So that's sad, but sometimes that happens. So we're going to scroll back here. And suppose we didn't have that P underscore tax map, or it was never properly populated or whatever. What would we do? Well, we might be able to use the span number, but if for some reason our GIS data is a little bit older, and I have many towns who don't have the span number in the GIS data yet, at the end we're going to talk about make sure if you get a new contract with you update your contract with your tax mapper, you kind of add that in as a new field in your GIS data as a deliverable. That's really important. But a lot of our old data doesn't have that in, so what we're going to have to do, if this isn't here, and this isn't here, what do? Well, we come over here and we have to deal with these two. And these are going to be there, P prop and P sub. And what are we going to do? How are we going to get these to work? Well, let's start doing that. So let's insert. This is where this isn't too hard. We'll insert a bunch of columns here. Got those inserted. So we're in Excel now. This is Excel 2010, but any version of Excel. It's probably easier in the older versions. So we inserted a bunch of fields here. Now, what I do is I like to have kind of, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel each time I do this, I have a little cheat sheet or cheat file of all my little text formulas. So you can write a formula in Excel that takes two fields and adds them up or subtracts them or divides them. But you can also use formulas in Excel to manipulate text fields, which is pretty interesting. So I have this little file here that I keep saved in my documentation folder, and this has all street names in it, but this shows the different ways that you can use a couple really important formulas in Excel to do some extracting. You can do most of this in the field calculation wizard dialog box of ArcMap, but I do that sometimes, but generally I do it in Excel. It's a little bit easier, I think. So, but you can do it either way. So if we go back here to our little example sheet, what's nice about this is I document what I'm doing, because I can't, I don't do this all the time, and then this is the formula right here. Now this is kind of a complicated formula. Everybody's going to look at this and go, oh no, but basically I'm using this formula called mid, which is really nice because it does an extract of this data over here, and then I use a nested formula called find to look for spaces and stuff. We're not going to do anything that fancy, but even with your simple formulas, you can set up a little file like this just to keep track of them so you don't have to remember what you're doing each time. So we're going to come back here, and here we are. So we've got this pprop field. Now, let's look at this. I'm looking at that, and I'm not liking what I see. I don't like that. It's got some leading spaces in this. You can see them all. That's bad. We didn't have any leading spaces over here or in the other one, so those have got to go. I don't know why they got put in there, but they're there, so let's get rid of them. And to do that, I use this. So I set up a formula equals trim, and then I want to trim this guy. So there we are. That's been trimmed now. So you can see those leading spaces are gone all at once. I can drag this down, and it gets rid of all the leading spaces, which is nice. They just go bye-bye. And then the next thing I want to do is, this is a formula, so I actually want to take this and copy it. And then I want to come over here and I want to paste it. But I want to paste it as values. So I want to get rid of that formula there. So I want to just have the kind of raw values instead of the formula. So now, whoops. There we go. So now I've pasted these in as values. They're not the formula anymore. So I can delete this first field here. And when I bring this into Excel or into ArcMap, if something happens to this or something gets changed or one of the fields gets messed with, this is in there. It's just kind of a safety measure. So now we need to do this again over here. We need to run a trim. On this guy. And so that cleans that one up. And again, we do, we could copy and paste the whole thing. We'll paste it as values right there. So now we have that in there. And now what we can do in this field, we'll insert one more. Insert one more column here. Is we can do a really important function where we just say, okay, we're going to set up a formula where we go and grab this one, and then we put in a pair of quotes and this little ampersand, which is a concatenation operator, which will just combine these two. So it's kind of a combiner. Then another ampersand. And then this field, we want to pay attention, make sure we're getting the right ones here. And then boom, that creates a nice, complete pprop, psub, ptax map ID combined field. Looks good. No extra spaces. No nothing. We can pull this down, and boom, we see all these little guys here. Now, obviously, we have to pull this down too, and then redo this. Just doing a copy and a paste here. Whoop! I forgot to do paste values. We're going to do paste values. Whoop! There we go. And now you can see they showed up here. These look pretty good. One thing we did here is you can see, because we have this concatenation operator running, we're putting this combined thing points at the end of all the matplot block numbers without the subdivision ones, which is okay. What we could do is we could sort it by this field at the beginning, so we could make sure we select everything. And when you're using Excel, make sure you do that. Upper left corner there, select all the records, so you don't just do a partial sort. Go to Data, Sort. We want to sort by. My data has headers, so I'll do that. And so what happens now is it puts all of these, here we go, at the bottom. So we can just write a formula that combines this and this down here, and then we could just use this directly. I'll show you. So that grabs that one, and then we could use the combiner formula down here. I've already showed you grab that one, do the ampersand, the quotes, the period, another ampersand, and this, and that'll give you that. And then I forgot to do my trim here, you notice. So you gotta really pay attention to that. You got to do this in a very organized fashion. And then copy that stuff over, put it in a new field. I've already finished one here, so I'm going to show you that real quick. And then with the finished one, we'll bring it into Excel and do the linking. So I'm going to close this one. Don't save. And I'm going to go, hang on. And here's the finished one. So we'll just open this up and see it. So now this is my finished. We'll make this bigger for you guys. Whoop. Quite that big. Finished combined tax map ID. We'll scroll down. So what I've done is I've gotten rid of those extra ones, so it all looks good. And we can now bring this into ArcMap, and we'll do that right now. So I'll close this. So let's go find it. And now what I'm doing is I'm using the new kind of 9x, 10x direct get Excel data. I don't have to convert it to DVF, which is really nice. So we're going to pull it in. Now, so I clicked on the file name. These are my Excel files in there, in that folder, the one I just opened and showed you. So I'm going to double click on that. And we got 3 things in there. And you're like, oh, geez, what does this mean? Well, they usually always have the sheet names and a thing called the database, which is a default named range. You don't have to worry about that. You might use that, you might not. But we're going to use the test sheet because that's the sheet we were using. So we're going to add that. There it is. We'll open it up. Looks just like the thing we were looking at. We'll scroll down to the bottom. Yeah, that looks good. It looks we have the number of records. This is always a good check. We had 1,970 rows in Excel, plus 1 for the header. We have 1969 here, so that's good. We got all the data. Did we get all the columns? Yes. That's one thing to check when you're bringing in Excel data. So now we can do our little linker. So let's go here, join. So I right-clicked there, context menu for the parcel layer. Go to join attributes from a table. And we want to use, well, now we're forgetting. What do we want to use? We want to use that parcel code field. All right, so it's up here. You can get, when I was getting ready for the webinar, I used this polygon code and nothing linked. And I was like, oh no, so you got to make sure you know what field you're using. So we're going to use parcel code there. And then in this one, we got another layer here, so we got to get to the right. We'll get rid of this one here so I can say the right one. Start again. Parcel code. Okay, for some reason, that's not popping in. Let's check and make sure. Might have to re-add this little guy here. Add the data, grab test, hit add. Join, parcel code. Maybe I've got to have it open. Function of 10. Well, anyway, I would pick this. I would pick test here. See if we can do a drag. Let's go grab it. Go grab it directly. Okay. So let me just close this down. We have some sort of conflict here. And we'll just quickly close this. I just really want to show you that. And now we'll open it up again. Go grab this one. Go grab the data. Huh. I don't know why that's not popping up there. It worked in my demo, but all right, well, anyway, then, so we would pick test here. Unfortunately, this didn't work. And then down here, we would pick that, we would pick this field. Let me show it to you here. So we would, in that little dialog, we would pick, we want to use this table, and then we want to use this field, and then it will link this table to this database right here. And we'll see all these new fields, much like we see, PCD2. We would see, additional address fields. I took the names out of here because it's confidential, but we would see these additional location fields and some other stuff. So that's how it works. I got 10 there, unfortunately, so sorry about that. But that's basically all I had. The main focus of this was I wanted to show you where to look up information online, the documentation, and how to, massage that text field in Excel to get it to work so you can use that as your linker field. Hopefully, this will be a good little segue, we can use this span field from now on that, is formatted in this 3-digit, 3-digit, 5-digit way, and we won't have to, deal with all that tax map ID massaging in Excel. All right, so now I guess I want to turn it back to Leslie, and she can talk a little bit about the, because we've got about 15 minutes left, about the tax parcel standard.
Thanks, Pete. So I have some questions and comments here that I think I'm going to just pass along to you so that you can start looking at them while I talk briefly about the standard, the draft standard. Let me just make sure I know how. Yeah. So, so there's been a subcommittee of the VCGI Technical Advisory Committee, which is the committee that comes up with data standards, GIS data standards in Vermont. And that subcommittee has been working on developing not actually a new, but something that hasn't existed before, which is a parcel data standard, a GIS parcel data standard. And sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once here. And that committee has been working for over a year on that, really about a year and a half. And we have a draft ready, almost ready. I have to do a little bit of editing today, and then I'll actually be posting it on our website tomorrow. So if anyone is interested in this, check the front page of our website after tomorrow, maybe the end of the day tomorrow, and you will see a link to it. And we have a public comment period for 30 days. And after that, after we take in those comments and maybe make edits based on those comments, we will have it kind of officially approved by our TAC, the full TAC. And once that happens, it goes to our board, the VCGI board, and then it becomes an official data standard. So becoming an official data standard basically means that people who do anything with public money that has to do with parcel data, develop parcel data with public money, really should be following the standard. It sort of has been the case that people doing municipal planning grant work that has involved creating GIS data, and particularly parcel data, have sort of been expected to follow the municipal mapping guideline. Was never really an official data standard. So the purpose of the data standard is to try to create more consistent data around the state so that the different towns' parcel data can actually be brought together in certain ways, as well as to help towns have more useful data, and things like what Pete demonstrated today, being able to link the grand list and parcel data is one of the examples of where if data follows a standard, this kind of thing is more possible, a little bit easier to deal with. It also provides a little bit of the technical information that a town may or may not know to ask for, or may not, have any idea that they should ask for. And basically, you can just take it and kind of hand it over to your mapping contractor rather than having to figure this kind of stuff out on your own. We've also updated the guideline, the mapping guideline, which is now a separate document. It's the same document that existed before, but updated and edited a bit so that it's not doesn't say stuff that's out of date, and addresses some of the things that are in the standard in a sense. So I can't show you those documents right now because I haven't finished editing based on the last few comments from the committee, but that will be posted by the end of the day. Both of those will be posted by the end of the day tomorrow. And the conference that is taking place January 26th in Montpelier, which many of you may be planning to come to, the Municipal and Irene Mapping Conference, we will have a session on each of those documents, one about the standards, one about the guideline. So if you're interested in that particularly, plan to come to the conference, and if you can, come to one or both of those sessions. I'm trying to think. So as Pete mentioned, I think one of the big, I don't know how to describe it, one of the big things in the standard is simply the fact that it requires that parcel data include the span. Obviously, that isn't currently a requirement of any kind, even though a lot of towns do it. By requiring it, you're sort of guaranteeing a unique ID number for each parcel, and that's unique between towns. That would be one of the main benefits of that. The other things in the standard mostly have to do with a few other requirements in terms of what should be in there for attributes, and then that the format should be a shapefile, a GIS data format called shapefile. There's not that much else in there. There are some suggestions for if your contractor goes beyond the most basic data. There are some suggestions for how he or she might deal with that, but the requirements are really pretty basic. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to mention. Is there anything else you wanted to say about it, Pete? About the standard?
No, I'm really excited about the span number. Mm-hmm. And how that can kind of simplify, hopefully make this webinar obsolete. Mm-hmm. Now, the way the span number is set up, it's based on how, you know, the PVR regulations and the contiguous parcel issue. I won't get into it right now, but every parcel that we may be interested in may not have a span number, but it's a uniform, at least the format of the number is a uniform standard, which is a step in the right direction. And I think some of the other things, you guys kind of address them a little bit in your standard, you know, dealing with unlanded or landed condominiums, and maybe they should have a point or a little circle in the database, in the GIS database, to kind of address that issue. So, and then they get their own span number. So there are ways to deal with that, and I think we're getting there, and the span number is the first kind of baby step, but it could be a big step if we all start using it and make sure it's in both our grand lists, which it already is, and in all of our GIS text parcel data from our contractors.
So Pete, did you get the questions that I forwarded to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I answered all of them except for a couple. Sorry about my screen size there, everyone. I just got a new computer, and it's Windows 7, and it is small. So this is my first webinar, so next time I'll work on that.
And it's actually, it's good to get the feedback, because it is something else that I need to remember to talk to presenters about beforehand. Yeah, just to think about, like, is there a way for you to zoom in?
Yeah, I think if you have a screen resolution similar to mine, it's not a problem, but if you don't, then you run into that problem.
So Pete, can you go through any of the questions or comments that you think would be of general interest to people? I know some are more comments, but
I'm going to call out one of the great commenters here, and I actually had planned to do this, but I forgot. Here we go. This guy is awesome. He works for NIMRIC. He's helped me out a lot. Where are we here? Oh, I got all this stuff up here, so we're going to contact us. So I'm on the. He's going to hate me now. This guy.
Ah, now he's going to regret making those comments and questions.
So it's Chris, if you can see my screen again. Chris Maley. I'm not sure how he says his last name, but it's Chris at nimric.com. He knows everything, and he is a super, super resource for all this stuff. He said a bunch of stuff here. Span is always 15 characters. It cannot be duplicated. Parcel ID, the pprop and psub, is also consistent length and cannot be duplicated, which are both critical characteristics of being a nice, unique ID that you can use to link one database to another. A couple other questions. Ron asked several good questions, and I'm not envisioning that everyone who's watching this webinar is going to go out and run these text formulas in Excel, but what it does is it shows you how it's done. It makes you aware that there's these, pprop and psub fields that are uniform. When you're talking to your tax parcel mapping contractor, you should know the format of your fields in the grand list. You should know the format of those fields in the GIS data. You should ask them, you might have to pay them a couple $100 extra 1 year to add in the span field. It's not already in your GIS deliverable, but that should get added in. So them or you, after you study up some more and talk to me or Chris or Leslie or hire someone else, can do these linking things easily. Or maybe you, in your deliverables, you want it to come pre-linked. And you know what that takes now. So that's kind of what I was envisioning. What else? A person asked a question about if our town doesn't use the map lot block and all numbers, what if they use alphanumeric? Is there a different process for linking the databases or using the span data? Span is span is span. So if you're linking span to span, that's got its own format from your grand list to your GIS. That's nice and straightforward. That's what we want to shoot for. If you're using some other tax parcel ID, parcel code, it can be whatever it is, alphanumeric, map lot block, combination of both, but the format has to be the same on both sides in both databases, the grand list and the GIS. That's the key. So you can really use anything, but make sure it's the same.
Excuse me, any other questions in there that might be of general interest?
And I'm so annoyed that 10 got me.
Oh, that there was something you couldn't do.
Yeah. But that shapefile from Woodstock I showed you already had a partial linkage, so that's what it'll look like when it's finished. It'll have all those additional fields in there. A person did ask a question about tax parcel map accuracy, which is a topic for a whole different webinar. But you have to remember that each one of these kind of tax parcels is a unique property record, and it has its own unique, essentially, accuracy history. So it might be developed from a recent survey. It might be developed from a very old survey. It might be developed the layout of it might be from just a deed description that references a 200-year-old oak tree back in 1960 that's long since gone now. So that's always an issue, but I've pretty consistently, all of our tax parcel maps are getting more and more accurate as the years go by. So just because of the nature of how they get developed and more surveys get done. So the future is only better and brighter.
Oh, okay. Somebody asked what the span number stands for. Would you like to say that?
I have no idea.
Actually, I think he answered the question himself, and I think he's right. School parcel account number. Does that sound right? School might not be parcel. School. And we just were talking about this. Yeah, maybe property account number. Yeah, I'm totally blanking on what it stands for, even though we just talked about it the other day. And that number is signed.
About is grand list data publicly available?
Yeah.
I usually get it from the town because I like to. The towns might have different ways of using some of the required fields in their database, and Chris brought that up. He said that not every town uses with various taxable districts use the rate select field. So it's nice to give your town a call that you're working with and actually, learn about what they're doing. And then get the grand list through them. I guarantee you'll learn a lot. But you can request it directly from PVR. They can give you a big export. They're wicked busy. They're understaffed, underfunded. I don't like to ask them questions unless absolutely necessary. And they may not know all the intricacies of each town.
But you can get the whole state all at once.
Yes, or
so for,
multiple towns.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I think we've. Pete, I may have forwarded you a few more questions, but I think you answered most of them.
Yeah, I'm looking at them here.
Number. So if anybody has any more questions, now is the time to send them. Otherwise, we're probably going to shut things down in a moment. Oh.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm surprised that as many of you did listen to this, but hopefully it was a little bit helpful. And if you have any questions, go to our website, trorc.org. We have a bunch of fact sheets about parcel mapping that are up there that VCGI actually links to. I got to update a couple of them with a span number, but that's trorc.org, and my email's on there, pfellows.
Oh, actually, that reminds me, Pete, if you could put up your, go back to your PowerPoint that had your thing, just so that it's in, just so it's here at the end. And Dan did ask one more question about the VCGI parcel data, the data that we distribute at our website, which if any of you don't know about that, you can go to the vcgi.org website, and you do have to put the www in at the beginning, to access much of the state's, not quite all of it, but much of the state's parcel data. And the question he asked was, does our data have an ID or a span? And I will have to say that unfortunately it varies a lot from one town to another. What we asked the RPCs to do, and most of them did this, was to strip out any of the identifying information like names and addresses and phone numbers, and preferably only leave in some kind of ID number, whether that was a span number or whatever made sense to them or to the contractor that made that data. But I have to say that in having opened up almost all those files at various points, there are a few towns that have nothing, that have no attribute data pretty much, and there are a few that have a bunch of other attribute data, but and probably including the ID or the span, but also might have some other stuff in there that's not identifying, but is like acreage and stuff. So it varies. So I can't guarantee that every single file does, but most of them do have some kind of ID number in there that would allow you to link to the grand list. So that's part of the reason for this data standard, is that in the long run, in the next few years, we would hope that all the data that we're distributing has the span number in it. So that's the long answer to that question. Do you have anything else you want to say, Pete?
No, we got a lot of good questions, so I think I got most of those. Yeah, just first thing to do always is go look at your tables and really look at those, what's in there, where are the points and where are the spaces, and you can't do too little of that.
Yep. Okay.
And put span in your new deliverable for your parcel data next year.
Yeah, if you make no other change, at least throw that in there.
Yeah.
It's a simple one to ask for, and hopefully they either won't charge you for it or won't charge too much extra for making the change. Okay, thank you very much, Pete. Appreciate you doing this, and thank you to everybody who participated. Appreciate the attendance and also all the good questions. So again, this has been recorded. This will be posted on our website by sometime next week, and so if you'd like, you can check for it there, and obviously Pete's contact information will be on there as well, if you haven't noted it down. So thank you to everybody, and have a good day and drive carefully.